All right, Alex.
I guess I got that.
One sec. One sec, folks.
Oh, what? Who?
Uh,
What's up? What's going on?
Welcome to the pilot of a brand new show here on Tarqaron called the Review Show, folks. Yeah.
Yay! Hooray! All right.
All right.
Yeah, it's another little new idea that we had. We've had this idea for a little bit now. Zach came up with the idea of going back and looking at both our past reviews, but as well as just reviewing, checking out like what other people thought about the movies that we've reviewed on this channel.
Yeah.
We've watched quite a bit of things, in fact.
So yeah, we've got over 100 movie reviews. This is specifically having to do with movies that we've reviewed on the channel. And basically how it worked is I have them all on a list and I just randomized and it picked one out. So there's no bias here. It could have been any of the movies we reviewed. And it worked out this time, but I would actually suggest in the future, if we keep doing it, maybe we limit it specifically to movies at least that weren't within the last year, like we were at least a year removed from them, maybe.
Yeah.
But this one we are, but like, because I just feel like it would kind of be silly if we like just reviewed one and now we're doing it.
Right.
Because
we're checking out again.
Because part of it, we're going to look at a couple reviews. We're going to look at a positive review and a negative review. That's at least to start. I don't know if we want to change that at all or figure out what works for us, but I basically went on Rotten Tomatoes, picked one positive review, one rotten review, and then we're going to come and look at them. But we're also having a segment in the beginning of the video where we're going to actually look back and reflect on the movie itself, and do we think our thoughts have changed since our review and whatnot. I got a couple of quotes from us to bring up about the movie. All right, but Alec doesn't know going into it. I kind of like it. We'll see if we keep doing it that way. But we'll give you a couple of quotes about this movie.
Before we start, are the reviews that we're going over, not our reviews, but are they critic reviews or fan reviews?
They are critic reviews.
Okay, interesting.
Like listed as critics under Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes they're a lot more lenient nowadays. Like you can have more independent. It's not like you have to be on a specific like formal review website.
Usually with that, it's like top critics. I think they do have like a select and the top critics or
there
whatever.
There is top critics, but I went straight critics, so it's a mixed bag. Like there's this website. It's got like one of the websites is called GoneWithTheTwins.com. GT, and it's got like an ET looking like logo.
Gone with the Twins.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
But then another one is called Vague Visages. It's a lot more proper.
Okay, like. We've got some interesting.
But like I've seen under Rotten Tomatoes, like I'll go to a positive review and it'll just like link right to a YouTube video, So
yeah.
But obviously I went with two written ones. All right, so here's some quotes from us about this movie. All right.
Okay, see if we can figure out what it is.
Alex says, "Awesome world, awesome concept." He also said, "Some of the most stunning, absolutely gorgeous CG animation I've ever seen." We both described the movie as pretty good. I said,
"Okay,
the pacing of the movie is really quick." I also said, "I almost feel like this would have been better as a series." Alec finally said, "The baby was a huge step too far." As we're talking about Raya and the Last Dragon, folks.
So, do you know what the weirdest thing about this is?
Yeah.
This is the movie that was in my brain when we said we were going to be removing. Like, before you said anything, I was thinking Raya and the Last Dragon, Raya and the Last Dragon, Raya. That's like all I could think about. It was like, that's crazy that is what I was thinking about. This is the first thing we're doing. That's wild.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah. And then we both gave it 7.5.
It's a step too far.
Yeah, because you were saying there was like a zany cast of characters, but the baby was a huge step too far.
Yeah.
It's like the fact they give us a baby's running cons, and there's no real explanation for it. Took it too far for you.
No. It was a little bit too far, yeah.
7.5 out of 10. Yeah, I said I feel like this would have been better as a series fleshed out like Avatar. I still stand by these statements. I think this sounds pretty accurate to me.
I definitely stand by that statement. Yeah, I mean, I've talked with other people about it, and they come to the same, more or less, have come to the same conclusion about it. Yeah, I mean, it is a really great concept. Like, I think I'd stand by that too. I think it's a great concept. I think it's a great world. Um, I even like the general plot itself is good. But yeah, it just feels maybe too rushed for its own good. Um, so
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
think that's one we could stand by. It's been a couple years since we reviewed it, at
Mhm.
least a few years. But
Yeah, I think it was 2021. I think is when that came out.
yeah,
So summer of 2021.
I still think it would make an excellent series. It really would have, because it was
Hmm.
like rushed a little bit in terms of the story and getting to know the characters. Some places we stop down in for like such a short amount of time, and then we keep it moving. All right.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to send you one of these reviews so I don't have to read all of it. Like
Okay.
you can read
Yeah,
one over the
that's
other or something.
I can read. Yeah, that works for me.
So yeah, Alec,
Okay.
if you want to read this one, it's Raya and the Last Dragon Review: A Fable Vibrating with Imagination and Optimism.
Oh wow, this is a long review. All right. Well, Raya and the Last Dragon lands in an unfortunate pandemic era with an escalation of infections and the reported xenophobic violence against Asian communities in the USA. So, the face of an animated Southeast Asian heroine, voiced by Star Wars alumni Kelly Marie Tran, who has endured fandom bullying, feels like an embracing reassurance. Yeah, that Asian hate stuff is still kind of going on, which
Mm-hmm.
sucks. But with screenwriters Adele Lim, who's Malaysian, and Ki Nguyen, who's Vietnamese, leading the penmanship, along with Thai artist Fawn Vera Sunthorn as the head of the story. Disney Animation Studios' latest computer animated feature film is imbued with fresh voices, humans, and imagination. In the fictional land of Kamandra, a South Asia-inspired world from places like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, and Brunei, which I think are things that we all talk like that was very clearly inspired by
Mm-hmm.
that. If you've ever seen any like photography or videography from those locations, you'd immediately recognize how inspired they were. So anyway, humanity locked themselves in a war so terrible they were turned to stone. So the dragons perform their magic to sacrifice themselves to save humanity, but 5 centuries later, humanity remains embroiled in distress. Enter the Kingdom of Heart. Raya's ruling chief, played by Daniel Day Kim, a guardian of the gem that contains the last dragon's soul, hopes to court peace with the 4 other tribes and invites them for a diplomatic feast. When the young Princess Raya befriends a rival faction princess, Namari, played by Gemma Chan, her trust is violated. Fractional conflict breaks out over the gem and is shattered to magical pieces that are stolen away by each faction. Blobs of shapeless mists that form the Droon, which are born from Discord, not unlike the Darkening in the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which I have not seen, swallows the princess's kingdom and encases them in stone. 6 years later, the wandering princess resurrects the last dragon and hunts for the final piece to assemble humanity's salvation. Shaded by her Salcott cone hat, Raya is no more remarkable and plucky than other modern Disney protagonists in Frozen, Moana, and Tangled, but Tran's voice work imposes a presence of amiable fortitude, a charm that carried over from her work in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which was thanklessly downgraded in its last film.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes, the charm of our favorite character,
Yes,
Rose Tico.
Rustica.
Rose Tika, as Ryan would say. But it is Tran's knack for kindling chemistry that's most vital to the message of Raya and the Last Dragon. Raya's first ally is the resurrected Last Dragon, an aquatic furred Sisu, Aquafina flexing her comedic and sincerity chops as a Disney sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
An ingenue of the current world order who nevertheless mentors Raya in the virtues of optimistic trust. An ingenue of the current world order.
Whoa.
What a weird, I guess. Along the way, they build a fellowship from the rival worlds. A 10-year-old boat restaurant owner, an adorably suave Isaac Wang, an agile con baby,
Yes.
Talia Tran, flanked by an acrobatic monkey accomplices, and a bulky guttural warrior, Benedict Wong, at his most hilarious and heartfelt. Whose hulking appearance turned up a facade for a bereaved family man. Well, Benedict Wong is he's just a wonderful actor in general. Note how Riot often dreams up solutions akin to the directive of video game levels. Defeat a big bad boss at a
Yep.
beach location and
That's true.
win the treasure. Beach like location holds a lesson that winning is helping the strangers, even if they seem to be adversaries and assume shells of stereotypes at first glance. Raya grows more versed in noting how the impulse to help exists as much as the temptation to fight. Yeah, and I mean, I think that again sort of goes along with the making it a series. Probably would have been better. I think in terms of what I'm
Yeah, it
feeling.
would be a cool
Ryan the
video
last,
game too, honestly.
yeah, no, yeah, that as well. You're right. Ryan the Last Dragon vibrates with a range of imagination, a kick butt sense of humor.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
That's all right. And Disney idealism. It's a recognizable brand of visual and character tropes with their own childlike spark. A cutesy sidekick Amarillo sidekick, played by Alan Tudyk. Amarillo. You mean armadillo?
But it's a Tuk Tuk.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think he's a full. He might be called an Amarillo. I don't know.
Amarillo, maybe. That serves as a trusty rolly steed across landscapes. A dragon that flies by frolicking on air puddles of rainwater, booby-trapped corridors with beetles that detonate color splashes. It's the familiar Disney playbook of a heroine's rise. Sans musical numbers, though. Kooky friends or foes and magic not unlike fairy dust. The tone, slick editing, and snappy dialogue calibrate a smart mouth vitality recognizable in screenwriter Nguyen's stage word, She Kills Monster. I don't know that at all, so I'm going to take your word on that.
Mm-hmm.
Under the direction of Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada, the narrative swipes from point A, B, C, D, E at the speed of sound to the thrashing score of James Newton Howard, who notably also speaking of things that work better as a series, James Newton Howard composed the score to M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender, even though that movie is dog, that's the score of that movie is excellent. I highly recommend giving it a listen.
Okay.
Normally back to the review. Normally the swift shifts to ornery set piece to set piece would steal necessary breathing space. But the immensity of those worlds, the market stalls on water lit with baubles of paper lanterns, misty forests with sky-high oak-sized bamboos, layered palaces surrounded by a canal, ensures that these landscapes and their crowds leave an impression. Every second is never fleeting through the gnashing of swordplay and steely confrontations with foes. Don't expect Disney to mine Namari and Raya's chemistry for a potential foes-to-lovers romance akin to Adora and Catra in the She-Ra reboot series, but I digress.
What is that?
So basically,
it's a deep.
So,
I don't
so
know
basically, they're like, Adora and She-Ra.
Yeah.
So She-Ra was a He-Man reboot from the 80s.
Oh.
Not reboot. She-Ra was like a spin-off of He-Man. She-Ra was like the Princesses of Power. That was like a thing. That was like the female akin to He-Man. But the sort of like new version of that is very LGBT, like super leaning into that, like pretty hard. So Adora and Catra are like foes to lovers kind of thing. So there's a lesbian romance in that, and they're saying don't expect the lesbian romance in this Disney movie. It's like, okay, but I digress. Yeah, that was a little bit of a digression. In a revisiting of Raya and the Last Dragon, the more I sit back, the more I want justice for cultural lived-in intimacy, which more singular-focused Disney Pixar pictures like Moana and Coco and even Disney imitators like Over the Moon benefited from. This isn't an issue of the lack of personalities of Raya's party members hailing from different worlds, all harboring the unified mission to save their loved ones and survive, but rather the lack of pause to absorb individual interiority. Kumandra inhabitants engage in a greeting of hands forming a circle to pay respects. The protagonist removes footwear before entering sacred spaces, and there's the obvious metaphor of the soup boiled with the signature ingredients from the 5 tribes. Oh, that peppered, sugared bamboo soup that would inspire fan-made recipes. But for all of the diverse attire, interaction, food, weaponry, and rituals glimpsed in the cuts, foregrounds, and backgrounds, there's barely sustenance of how each of Raya's allies live by their own traditions, morals, and rituals. This premise has evoked knee-jerk but still telling comparisons to Avatar: The Last Airbender, a Western animated series led by white creators that's famous for mixing and mingling different Asian cultures, though predominantly East Asian in its case, to illustrate precedent-setting world-building and narrative complexity for children's entertainment. I'm going to take this time to tell you right now, while it was led by white creators, almost everyone who worked on the show and animated it was Asian, because it was outsourced to studios in Japan and Korea.
But it's
But
led.
anyway,
It's led by white creators.
it was led those freaking white guys, you know.
Well, she said
All
it's
right,
good.
well,
She
that's
said
fine.
it's precedent-setting world building. This is all good things.
Anyway, right now, Raya and the Last Dragon welcomes a reflection on Asian fusion design, not unlike the current convention around Avatar, because Western adaptations of Asian culture, even with visible and vocal creative Asian output, will come with a spectrum of Orientalism and the risk of stirring up monolithizing groups rather than cultivating myriad
Soups.
variety. Yeah, soups and monolithizing soup. This person has like, I get it. Like I write kind of, I can sometimes when I was writing stuff in
It's
college, I wrote
flowery
sort of like
language.
this a little bit. It's overly. This is if this person came in the writing center and gave me this, I'd be like, you gotta ease up on the flowery language. Like this is well written. But you gotta ease up on that a little bit because it's too much. It's a little too much.
Oh.
Um, Critics have pointed out that the cast roster is dominated by East Asian voice actors rather than Southeast Asians representing Southeast Asian based players. I don't know which
Hmm.
critics we're referring to because you didn't cite any of them, but I'm sure that there probably are plenty that did. Don't expect Raya and the Last Dragon to overreach and spin its own memorable nuances to its humble escapist message of unity and trust. The adult-oriented Studio Ghibli Princess Mononoke, an unfair but handy comparison, is adept at fleshing out spectrums of the good, bad, and gray for each soul and faction, and their interchangeable relationships to corrupt forces, human and nature. Regardless, this fable and its bountiful fantasy-scapes occupy the heart.
Wow.
Well, Carolyn Cow is a queer Vietnamese Houstonian earthling. Carol has lent her wit and pop culture to Birth Movies Death, The Mary Sue, Bitch, Film School Rejects, and IndieWire. Right now, she's probably that's apparently a site,
Bitch.
I guess. I don't know. Right now, she's probably boiling ramen.
Oh. All right. Very nice.
All right, well, there you have it. That was her review. I mean, yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. I totally agree with a lot of what she says in a lot of ways. To me, I think to me there is enough there. I mean, I guess she's saying that like there's probably will be there probably will be like people that are like overly compare it to things where it's like, well, this is like way more Southeast Asian than like specifically East Asian, like Avatar. A lot of Avatar is, even though Avatar itself also has a lot of Southeast Asian influences. I will say, but I mean, and, yeah, she says like Asian fusion, and I mean, I think there is a thing to be said about like it sort of becomes a melange because like all of these locations, like I was just actually just talking with some friends about this, how singularly different places like Indonesia and the Philippines are. They're in like relatively similar geographic locations, but totally different languages, um, totally different religious spectrum. So Philippines is predominantly Catholic, Indonesia is primarily Muslim, um, and they have completely different cultures, languages, and everything else that. So you wouldn't necessarily think that like some places in the Oceania, you know, a lot of the island nations
Hmm.
in Southeast Asia and beyond, um, in your mind you might kind of like blend them all together, but there's a lot of distinction between a lot of them. And so I think she's right in the sense that like some of that can sometimes get lost in things like this, but you then also have to like step back and be like, while what you're saying is true, this is also like not everything has to be like a one-to-one gel with reality. Like it's
Right.
okay to take influences from a lot of different things and use them to inspire art. And I think to me is what this movie does very well. I think it honors all of those cultures in their own way. Um, I think. I mean, I think it does at least in terms of its at least in terms of visual and tradition sort of concepts. I think there's probably more that could be done, but you only have like an hour and a half, 2 hours to tell a story. So
Yeah.
it's like, how much of that are you going to, you know?
And she overall gives
But
it
yeah,
pretty good props for what it does,
yeah, pretty good props for what it does. Yeah,
And it's for the
there was
heart,
one comment
very
on there
like
too. Yeah.
There's a comment.
What was the
One
comment
comment.
on this review? Yeah, I can't read it though. It won't let me see it. I might have to log in. I'm sorry. I'm not logging into vague visages.
Sorry.
So, well, all right. There you have it. That's the positive review. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty good review. They clearly enjoyed what it was, for what it was.
All right. And we're taking a bit of a shift over here for this review. It's on Gone with the Twins.
This is a lot more. Is this a lot more blunt and utilitarian rather than extremely flowery like that was?
See, I tried not to look at it too much. This is a much shorter review. No, maybe not. This is also not spaced out as much, with pictures. So, let's see. All right. This is a review by Mike Massey on GoneWithTheTwins.com. A lone rider in a dystopian world races across barren terrain, a rather trite character in a rather trite setting. But the narrator, Princess Raya, Kelly Marie Tran, calls attention to these unoriginal motifs, explaining that 500 years ago, the people of Kamandra lived harmoniously alongside water-bringing dragons, which provided for a lush expanse. It was the arrival of a mindless plague in the form of a monster dubbed the Droon, aka akin to Hexus from Fern Gully, though more commonplace, appearing like every smoky elemental creature in video games and movies over the last decade, spreading like wildfire that turned the landscape and inhabitants into ash and stone. The last surviving dragon blasted the Droon away with a magical gem, restoring humankind, but the dragons themselves weren't resurrected. Rather than embracing the return of peace, the various human groups split apart into warring nations, opting instead to fight over the gem, which is believed to both bring prosperity and serve as a mighty weapon throughout the centuries.
I have one thing to say. He called it a dystopian landscape. What's dystopian about this world? What?
Right.
I just everything else aside. He's just setting up what he feels about stuff. But calling it dystopian, it's like that's not.
Lone Rider in a dystopian world.
Really dystopian.
Well, she raced across barren terrain apparently.
She did, but that's not dystopian.
Anyway. Yeah, I guess because we're losing all the peace and everything, it could be kind of. It's like devolving.
Yeah, but that's not like. I mean, yeah, a world that's like at war isn't dystopian though.
Right.
Like, I don't know, a little weird.
I might be a little bit of a dragon nerd. This is the quote he put here. Raya and her father. It might be a quote from Raya.
That was from the movie. That was a quote from the movie. Yeah, I might be a little bit of a dragon nerd. Yeah.
Raya and her father, Chief Benja, Daniel Day Kim, are part of the Heart Village, which currently guards the dragon gem in a massive booby-trapped cavernous temple. Booby-trap overlap.
Booby-trap.
Benja hopes to one day unify the neighboring civilizations, named Talon, Tail, Spine, and Fang, but they're more interested in stealing the last vestige of dragon power for themselves to reign supreme over their brethren. When a charitable feast between the clans provides an opportunity for espionage, the gem is destroyed and the blackish-purplish plague beast escapes once again, turning everything in its path to stone. In the Land of Tail, 6 years later, Raya journeys on an epic quest to locate Sisu, Aquafina, the last dragon, fabled to still be in slumber at the end of a river. It's a lonely trek with few other survivors wandering the wastelands and unknown hazards at every turn. Plus, Raya isn't the only one attempting to find Sisu, all while the chiefs of the 5 factions continue to hunt each other down. The world's broken. Problematically, when legends and the occult are involved, the progression of the story feels as if made up spontaneously. There's excitement and daredevilry, some in the vein of the adventures of Indiana Jones, but it's all impromptu, with predicaments derived on a whim and solutions likewise conjured on the spot. It's difficult to become emotionally invested in these types of fantasy premises, since any sequence of potential danger or demise is apparent only in the moment, and a quick fix can be summoned in the blink of an eye.
That's actually a pretty worthy criticism. Yeah, it is true that it does. That's what we mean by it feeling really episodic, though, because it does feel like we got the problem. Oh, this is danger, and then it's like, well, they solved it. Whatever. On to the next thing. That's a fair criticism.
It lends itself to an episodic structure for sure, because you kind of have that, not to draw a comparison to Avatar: The Last Airbender again, but
Again, but
they come into trouble in these towns, random towns and stuff, and
mhm.
you see that even stuff like The Mandalorian, where it's like it's easier
Yeah, yeah,
to
definitely.
resolve each thing fully when you have like an episode to work with. Like you go to each place, it's got
Right.
at least a whole episode with it.
Hmm.
Even the animals are chimerical, explained away in their introductory scenes, possessing characteristics and capabilities used mere seconds after those definitions are unveiled. And requirements for Raya's quest are presented this way, too. She follows rivers, chants spells, and visits the adjacent kingdoms only because she feels compelled to do so, or because a myth suggests it.
Isn't that how a lot of fantasy adventure stories go, though? Like,
Right.
that kind of where Indiana Jones does, is he? Like, a little bit.
Yeah. Fortunately, much
Anyway.
of the film is action-packed. It's largely about accomplishing a perilous crusade, encountering enemy after enemy while surviving one deadly undertaking after another, including vengeful duels. Allies are collected, such as young Captain Bone. Was it Bound?
I can't remember a bow.
Such as young Captain Boone, Isaac Wang, and hulking spine warrior Tang, Benedict Wong, like in Clash of the Titans, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, or the many Harryhausen Swords and Sorcery pictures, each adding a unique skill. Raya even has a trusty steed called Tuk Tuk, which is an armadillo-type critter, curiously voice credited to Alan Tudyk, despite the fact that it never speaks. While a map keeps popping up to illustrate how to infiltrate and abscond with gem shards.
This guy doesn't know this. That Alan Tudyk does a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm.
He voices like that's one of his things. Much like there's another voice actor that does the same thing. Like Alan Tudyk, yes, he's also a good actor, but there's another like talking about Avatar, did a lot of like he did like Appa and Momo and like all the creature. He does like all of those
Yeah.
creature noises. Alan Tudyk does that too. Just he does like a lot of that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. The expedition grows more complex when needed, or takes breaks for extra backstory details to draw things out before the climax, escalating frenzy but diminishing creativity. Unfortunately, regardless of the little plot points that stretch this tale out to feature length, the story is hopelessly generic. Sequences of betrayal, teamwork, trust, redemption, and showdowns are disappointingly predictable. Magical elements come to the rescue, but it's never reasonable that they should work, nor is it disclosed how they operate. The debilitating epitome of contrived. And none of these characters impart even a glimmer of originality. The heroes are good because they're expected to be, the villains evil for the same purpose. It also doesn't help that the theme is predominantly one of humanity's irredeemable heinousness and its unquenchable thirst for self-destruction. Some audiences may just root for the Droon to win. Plus, the humor rarely makes its mark, though a Khan baby and her trio of simian cohorts garner a laugh or two, even if they're completely unfitting in a fantasy world in which they should have been alien species. And though the the animation is exceptional, Walt Disney Animation Studios excels in this arena, the visuals alone aren't enough to save a project from such colossal storytelling mediocrity. 3 out of 10 from Mike Massey.
Oof. Oof. Well, I will say that I mean some of the critiques of lines there at the end reminded me of Wish in a lot of ways.
Right.
Mediocrity. Even nothing could save that movie from the mediocrity.
It's like he had some mild jabs thrown in the mix as you just tell him like a little bit of the story early on, and then the final paragraph he's just like he's
Laying
going
into
for
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, not satisfying. You did not find it very satisfying, that's for sure.
No, here, I'll send this to you just so you can see what it looks like. It's very
Yeah.
different looking than the other website.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little different. The search function says, Joey, do you like movies about gladiators?
It's more like a blog. You can tell it's more like a blog
Yeah.
format.
It's a blog. It's a blog format. That's cool though. You know, good for Mike Massey. You know.
3 out of 10. Shisha money.
That's a little rough. That's a little rough.
Just also worth noting though, that for Mike Massey, he's one half of Mike and Joel Massey, aka the Massey twins. A set of identical
so twins
twin film
movies.
critics who have been professionally reviewing movies full time since 2007. All right.
Okay, that's fun.
I'm trying to see. Okay, they have a thing on the scoring system. Let me see. Let's see what a 3 out of 10 is characterized as.
As they even have it listed on their site, huh?
Mm-hmm. 3 out of 10. Pathetic storytelling, amateurish acting, and technically or artistically deficient. However, a specific niche may actually appreciate the movie, particularly if the subject matter can attract pre-sold audiences, but still not good enough for a guilty pleasure. Tough. I clicked on 10 out of 10 movies, and what do I see but Finding Dory?
No, no, you can't be
The
serious.
Massey twins reviewed together.
You can
They reviewed Finding
you
Dory, give it 10
cannot
out
be
of 10.
serious.
Yeah.
You cannot. No, that's a lie.
All right. Well, all right. Let me maybe wrap this one up.
Okay, well, there you have it. There it is.
There it
That's
is.
our review. What would you think about overall of the reviews that we checked today? Oh, well, by the way, actually, what is the overall Rotten Tomatoes score on this?
93%.
Was it 72?
93.
93.
Yeah. A little different.
72.
93.
I don't even
Yeah.
know where I heard that.
There weren't many rotten movies when I was scrolling through. There weren't many, so I had to pick out
Yeah.
a few.
Okay, well, it happens
There you have
sometimes.
it. Well, it was fun though. It was fun looking back on it. Again, it's a
Yeah.
pilot episode. We can always tweak things. I don't know. I think one positive, one negative is good. It's a
Hmm.
good serving size here. And I think it would be a good rule to have at least for 1 year removed from our review.
Yeah, that's a good call, especially because it has been a little bit since I've seen this. But I think I mean I give you real. I mean I don't think the reviews changed my mind. I think they both had really good points though overall, and that's why like mine's sort of I'm kind of in the middle there
Yeah,
in terms of my thoughts on it. So
that's good. I mean, we're basically in the middle there. We both say it's pretty good, and so it'll be interesting if when we get movies that are like that we really didn't like, seeing like positive reviews of, or movies we really liked, seeing negative reviews of, and being able to try to see if we would debate that or not. All right. But that was our first episode of the review show. Raya and the Last Dragon. Thank you for stopping
all
by.
right.
I'll never see you again. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, take care of yourself out. Go. I mean, honestly, I think you should go check out our detailed thoughts and reviews on this movie that we covered
Go
today.
watch our Raya review. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, let us know your thoughts by leaving a comment, and then we'll definitely read it on the next episode of the Tarqaron podcast. Love to hear feedback. If this kind of thing you want to see more of, for sure. It could be fun. It could be fun to dive back into. I was thinking at first, I was like, would it be better if we like rewatched it also? But it's like, no, then it's too much probably.
Yeah. I think rewatching it because I think so. I mean, some of these movies I have rewatched. Some of the movies that we've reviewed, I have rewatched. But like other times, sometimes you don't. It's actually sometimes better to have it maybe be a little less fresh, because then you can kind of like, especially as we start going through the reviews, you might be able to actually remember some stuff about the movies you
Right.
may have forgotten. But it's also kind of a nice thing because it's like how you feel about it now. It kind of like I felt like maybe my perception on the movie this movie maybe gone down since my review, but it's actually stayed pretty much right around the same place, surprisingly. So
Yeah, I think there are ones that
yeah,
definitely would change more
yeah, I
with the
definitely
more
think so.
time. But yeah, I'll be interested like ones that we don't maybe remember as well. Like Birds of Prey. I remember you mentioning like you don't remember anything about that movie.
I remember like almost nothing about that movie. All I remember is that like Ewan McGregor is in that movie. I think I remember like nothing about that film.
But
So
it's like
yeah,
we could get anything. We could get Shrek Forever After. We get
yeah,
that would be an interesting one actually because it was like it's reviewed so negatively in Rotten Tomatoes, like the critics
yeah,
aggregate score. So
yeah.
would like to see
Which
like
is yeah,
what are the scathing reviews saying about it.
and how I disagree with him because it's It's such a good Shrek movie.
Or like movies that are such masterpieces, or
Yeah.
so like, reviewed so highly, like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I want to see like negative review of that.
Yeah.
And does a negative review exist of The Godfather? That would be something we'd have to
I'm
explore
sure.
if
Yeah,
that came up.
it would have to be. You have to look for it. You have
Because
to go
like,
hunting. But I'm sure there's
Toy
probably
Story
somebody
has
that.
100%. Like you wouldn't be able to find one if we had the original Toy Story.
You literally cannot. Yeah, is there a single human being alive that doesn't like Toy Story? I'm sure there probably is, but you poor
I would have
sad
to go off
sap
of Rotten
is all I
Tomatoes and
have to
start
say.
like looking for like just random
Yeah,
people's posts out there.
yeah, pretty much.
Like, who's the biggest, like the most negative Godfather review? I want to see that. Give it. All right, thank you
Yeah,
for
I don't
watching,
know. Anyway,
and take
yeah.
care.